Welcome to a football show here live from the pharmacy in East Nashville on what is a gorgeous February Monday afternoon. You can see all these wonderful people behind us having wonderful and amazing burgers and brats and beers. Maybe going back to work, who knows? But there's beers flowing here at the pharmacy. He is Zach Lyons, back fresh and healthy, maybe. Healthy-ish?
I'm healthy-ish. My body's adjusting to the not swamp life, I guess it is, down in Mobile. It's very wet, damp, and cold. I mean, just like humid everywhere. It was you can't escape it. It was inside our the Mardi Gras Manor. It was outside. It was in the bars. Like it's a horrible experience.
I'm sure that comes along with lots of libations, delicious oysters, and lots of other Gulf fare, I imagine. So hope you guys had a great opportunity out there to check out both you. Shout out to Stoney Keeley of the Sobros Network for all the coverage you guys gave us last week. Live from Mobile, of course, down there at the Senior Bowl during the 3 days of practice and, of course, during the game. Stacking the inbox, of course, right there. Look at that fancy swag already.
Yeah, I guess it's
Stacking the inbox.substack.com for all the great reporting from Zach there. And then, again, make sure shout out to Stoney at Sobros Network, of course, at Stoney Keeley for all the great work he did with you down there. I'm sure you guys just got done with the stadium. You got done with practice. You compared your notes quietly in the manor, the Mardi Gras Manor, and I'm sure you just went right to bed every night.
Well, if you're alluding that we partied every night, then you would be mistaken. We only partied one night, and that was the off day of Friday that goes into the game. Good. That was a horrible mistake. Stoney is possibly still got his ankle raised. He stepped off a curb wrong. It was not great for him. I threw up that night after making fun of Stoney all night for drinking the dishwater beer that he was drinking. That you would never find that beer here at the pharmacy, by the way.
It's the Hoppa Brow, handcrafted.
But for the most part, we would go to this bar right across the Raw Bar, get some seafood, get some food.
Hell yeah.
Get a few beers, and we'd go back, and Stoney is like a machine. He would be sitting there at the bar, and he's going through his notes, and I'm not even allowed to talk to him. It felt like he's going through all of his notes, and then we go home.
Right, night short space agility.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I mean, like he. By the time we woke up on Thursday or Saturday morning to go to the game, where I'm completely hungover, he already wrote an article, and then we get back yesterday. I drop him off, and not like an hour later, he has his big board up. Man is a machine. And let me say something: out of all the local media members, you're not going to find more thorough coverage than what you're going to find between me and Stoney and all of our stuff. Because guess what? Unlike them, we actually watched the practices in full. I know that's crazy, and we actually stayed for the game when they all left on Thursday night or Friday morning.
It sounds like it doesn't sound like staying was all that great of a decision.
The game was great.
The game was great.
Got lots of information. We were up in the press box, chugging Dr. Pepper tins or whatever we were drinking up there.
You guys are nuts. But at least you check out all of it. Just please, everybody, check out all the coverage so that all of that didn't go for naught. No, it was great stuff. Of course, again, stacking the inbox, the Substack. You've got Stoney Keeley. He's got his Titans pod, the unofficial Titans podcast. You got the Sobros Network. You got the Football and Other F Words. And again, thanks to Stoney for stepping in for me last week and doing this show. So 2 great episodes of a football show from last week. If you want all the coverage from the individual players, today on the show we're going to talk a little bit more about like some of the rumors with the Titans going up to number 1 to get the Bears pick, what that would mean to the retool and to the strategy in the offseason, but also what you learned at Senior Bowl practice. We're starting to get a better feel for how big boards are going to look and what parts of the draft classes are stronger or weaker, and how that aligns with the Titans' needs. And so we get to begin the draft process after the Senior Bowl because, again, I believe all the swag says
it. The draft starts in Mobile. We don't know why Mobile, but we know it starts in Mobile.
I actually have an idea, but I'm going to need to confirm that before I go on air with that.
We thought about that being a question for Jim Nagy. Is like, hey, why is it Mobile?
I'll find the answer for you.
We appreciate
I will ask, and I will be back to all of you for this. So if you want to get in the comments, of course, jump in there. We already have Donnie and Stoney in there making some just ruffling feathers. All right, so pharmacy here. I want to tell you guys about the porcupine burger here, the brat patty, country ham, grilled pineapple, Swiss arugula, onion, and maple mustard. That is their new burger, of course.
Okay, I think you went through that a little too quick.
Do I need to go?
Because I think we need to emphasize what all deliciousness is on this
Okay.
burger.
That was like a Tajay. Oh, I almost said sharp.
Yeah, Tajay Spears.
That was like a Tajay Spears in and out route right there.
Yeah.
Porcupine burger, which is a brat patty.
Okay.
A brat patty. Emphasize the brat there. Country ham.
Best country ham right around here.
Grilled pineapple.
Mm-hmm.
Swiss cheese.
Mm.
Arugula.
Mm.
Onion.
Mm.
Maple mustard.
Mm.
Getting a little uncomfortable sitting this close to you.
Mm.
And why don't you pair it with one of these nice Hopper Brow beers? This one, I don't think you can get this anywhere else in Nashville. You can get this right here at the pharmacy. Of course, this delicious golden color here. A little, that's the Weissbier. What you got over there?
I got the Freitgeist Autumn Alt Beer.
All right.
Audubon Alt Beer.
There you go.
Audubon.
There you go. Come on out to the pharmacy. Of course, it's a gorgeous day. Perfect day to come out with the kids, with the wife, with the family, with the buddies after work, for lunch. Grab a beer. Grab a porcupine brat patty. It's just that sounds amazing.
I will say I miss the beer selection so much while I was down in Mobile. That I mean, pharmacy by far has the best beer selection anyway. Some of the best, but it's like it's bad. It's bad down there.
That I believe. Okay, so you guys know what we're gonna. By the way, also, so it's a lot of Titans. How it's intermingled with draft needs as we're learning about the draft class. What you learned at Senior Bowl. Potentially, we're going to get into what a trade up to number 1 would look like, as those rumors are now kind of coming out of Chicago. Of course, it's must-lie season with the NFL draft right around the corner and the combine right around the corner. So how much can you trust? How much can you believe is always a great question to ask for all of this stuff. Also, it'll lead us into, because Hendon Hooker was down there, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions around what Hendon Hooker...
Perpetuated by the local media. I'm big beef with local media after this weekend.
Big beef. Not
hey, AJ Green retired.
AJ Green finally has retired.
Oh, thank God. That was going to be a long offseason for us covering the Titans if he didn't retire.
He and Julio Jones, I think, were the number 1 and number 2 receivers coming out of high school, just in the same class, and it's like the best receiving top 2 we've ever seen in a recruiting class ever. It turned out they both were pretty good, and the 5-star status was deserved there. We got beef with local media, not a porcupine brat patty. A beef with local media. But it also leads us into a question about the quarterback play in the SEC. So not a lot of college football today on the show, but there's a little SEC football at the quarterback position for you guys later, a little bit later on. And of course, the Kingston Group. Don't forget our great and amazing sponsor, the Kingston Group. BuildKG.com. Don't make any decisions about your house until you talk to the Kingston Group. They will formulate a plan, nose to tail, in-house design team. You don't have to trust general contractors. Just talk to the Kingston Group, give them a call, have a conversation before you do anything big with your house. Because even if you don't use them, they will help you make the best possible decision. That's what we're all about here, helping each other.
I like to be informed no matter what the decision is.
Yes.
Give me some information.
Exactly. All right, so let's start with this number 1 pick rumor, which does come out of, it's a blog from another blog attached to another blog.
No. I think people are a little confused over how it went because what happened is that the Bears blog, 42K followers, by the way. I've seen a lot of people dispute them and be a little jealous. I think there's follower envy, by the way.
Well, I'm curious. This is a different subject, but I don't think
I could tell you some more about their sourcing and stuff.
That's what I want to hear about, because the number of followers you have doesn't make your sources any less or.
Well, I think if they were shitty at sourcing information, would you follow a place that's shitty at sourcing information?
I don't think following someone has anything to do.
Do you have 42,000 followers?
No, but I don't.
Would you say that you have journalism integrity? Journalistic integrity,
right? That's my point.
No, I think it's I think when people discredit other accounts like this because it's called the Bears blog or something, I think there is follower envy.
No, what I'm saying is that getting followers is a certain skill. On social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. It requires a skill.
if you constantly discredit yourself, you would lose followers. You wouldn't grow in.
What
followers.
if your shit was really funny though? Then you're just going to keep getting followers.
Yeah, but that's difference between that. And anyway, he does have sources, and his sources are typically the so-and-so interviewed for such and such position on this day. It has been confirmed. So it's someone obviously inside the building, right? So he does have sources. I think the confusion lies with this Ben Devine guy who is at Chicago NFL with only 2,000 followers, and he makes his own tweet, even though referencing this tweet, and people are now taking that as oh, well, this guy's probably not credit worthy, so that means the Bears blog is not credit worthy, which I think is.
I would say that I don't know. Your follower count has nothing to do with whether or not your sources are good or not. That's what I would say, and I don't care which one of them says it. what we need to do, I think, is start the conversation with a giant, massive grain of salt, which is, it may be very true. The Titans may absolutely have an offer on the table, and I would argue Rand Carthon and the Titans front office is not doing their job if they're not kicking the tires on the number 1 overall pick. But this is must-lie season. This is where everyone is lying about everything all the time.
Well, and let's be honest here. The guy in that his source could be lying as well. Now, listen, all it is that there's 2 teams, not the Texans, not the Colts, that have offers on the table. And someone said Vegas and Panthers, and he said, why not, quote tweeted, why not the team at 11 in Tennessee? So that is the connection. So, like, he is saying essentially in a roundabout way that Tennessee has got an offer on the table. Why aren't you considering that guy? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right. Well, I think he came back and actually said it more directly later. But again,
the Ben Devine guy did.
Yes.
So Ben Devine does not matter in this conversation.
Right.
It's all about the Bears blog.
The Bears. Let's get to. I love that. Let's get to, because you and I have talked about this, and you've been pretty clear on. If you think you have your guy, spend whatever it takes to go up and get them. If that's Bryce Young, do it. You and I probably agree that it's Bryce. I would vote for Bryce Young personally. See if it's CJ Stroud, go up and do it. I think we both agree on those 2. The question is,
as long as never Levis. Hashtag never Levis.
Hashtag never Levis. So the interesting thing about this, and there's some historical context that we need to have here, and that is that only 3 times since 1997 has the number 1 pick ever been traded. So it doesn't happen very often. It's pretty rare.
Because usually the team that is in the number 1 spot is is at the number 1 spot because they don't have a quarterback.
And I think we could argue this one still might need a quarterback, but they don't know that yet.
Yeah. Supposedly everybody's sold on him inside the building, which is a good sign for him, maybe a bad sign for the coaching staff.
That's all true. So the one of those 3, of course, was the Tennessee Titans back in 2016, where they trade back and then they trade back up again to the top 10. They end up with Jack Conklin and Derrick Henry out of the deal. A couple of other picks that you don't care about, but they got a pretty good deal out of that particular trade. And they got a first-round pick, which was the 15th overall pick. So they went from 1 to 15. They got 2 2s, a 3, another first-rounder the next year, and a third. This can get pretty complicated to listen to, but basically 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds. That's the easiest way to put it. And then they gave up a first, a fourth, and a 6th. So the question is, how much would it cost, and how much damage does it do to the retooling process? And again, we'll get to Nate Davis and Ben Jones and a few other pieces of news this week. But what does that trade? How much does it cost, and what does it do to the retooling?
Well, it's good to have that kind of information, but you have to look at it in terms of, okay, it's 2022. Well, 2023. So what is that value now? Inflation, if you want to call it that. Essentially, what you're going to find happen is more than likely the Colts, the Panthers, maybe the Seahawks and the Raiders, depending on how free agency goes, are all vying for this number 1 spot. I think it's very early, right? So it's very early. They probably have like a low ball kind of like, hey, this is like a little offer out there to let you know that we're interested. Hit us back or whatever. Keep us in mind.
Trial balloon. Like, let's see.
Keep us in mind. Hopefully they didn't shoot down the balloon, but we are.
The balloon has been shot down. I can confirm that TikTok no longer has a balloon.
Yeah. Anyway, when you talk about this, I think that it's going to take multiple firsts. And I don't think you're going to be able to saddle them up with a bunch of 2nd and 3rd round picks like they were given back then. In my mind, I think a reasonable deal, after talking it out with Stoney on our way back, would be 3 first-round picks this year, next year, the year again.
Reasonable for the Bears or reasonable for the Titans?
I think it's a fair deal for both sides. Okay. So you're getting 3 first-round picks, and you're giving them a 2nd-round pick next year.
Ooh.
Okay.
Wow.
And you're getting their number 1 overall, and you're getting their 4th overall pick or 4th-round pick from this year's draft. So you're getting a 1st and a 4th back. Okay.
So as of right now, according to this draft class, if you make the trade, which would be 3 firsts, you're also giving up the 41st overall pick in this draft?
No.
That's next year's draft. Okay. So in this draft, you would have the number 1 overall pick if you're the Titans.
And then the rest of the picks like normal.
And adding a 4th rounder. So you're replacing that's the Julio Jones trade. So you replace the 4th rounder. So then you would still have, in theory, your number 1 overall guy, and then still a chance to go 2nd, 3rd, 4th round to stock up around him, knowing that you're not going to get an elite pick for 4 years.
Yeah, well, 3
drafts, but
yeah.
Well, I guess
you're getting one. So 2 really.
One in 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's be honest, and you got to remember the other side of this, and this is what people in their little mock drafts, and I wrote about this today for stackingtheinbox.substack.com, the do's and don'ts of a Titans mock draft. If you're gonna, because you can trade in a PFF, you could trade players, 4 picks. Okay, so PFF's mock draft machine. If you're trading up for Bryce Young, Ryan Tannehill has to be traded.
In which case, you get
more picks in this year's draft, more than likely.
Okay, well then, so this is where this whole thing is so fascinating for me as a fan of, if you're a fan of the Titans and you have this giant puzzle with all this red string attached to Tannehill, to Bryce Young, to Malik Willis,
or CJ Stroud, but it should be Bryce Young.
We'll just use Bryce Young as the stand-in cutout for the number 1 overall pick, whoever it may be. But like. You've got Malik Willis, who's a non-factor in all of this, but he's on the roster, who's a 3rd-round pick last year. You don't have a coordinator yet.
Yeah.
We don't even know who that's going to be.
I think we have a good clue.
Which I feel like because it's taking this long and the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, we have a pretty good idea of who it's going to be.
And who do you think, wouldn't you think that they would salivate, both these offensive coordinators, no matter which one it is, would salivate over a 200-plus pound Bryce Young that's coming to the combine?
Yes, the way I looked at the raw bar you and Stoney were at this week, I was salivating over the oysters. It just is so fascinating with the number of machinations that could take place and the way one move affects the next move, the way it affects the next move. And if it's like, there's part of me that says if you've got Bryce Young, I don't think he's ready with this team. Now, if you keep your 2nd and 3rd round picks and all of a sudden you can get, let's say, a guard and a center out of the deal, and all of a sudden you can upgrade your guard and your center position. Assume we'll get to Nate Davis and Ben Jones in a second, but let's say 2 guards even, whatever. You've all of a sudden you got to replace 3 offensive linemen. Now you've only got to replace 1 offensive lineman. Is that enough for Bryce Young and the current supporting cast? Like, what does that make 2023?
It's all constructed to where you could be successful in 2023 because you got listen. And here's the thing: you have to trade Tannehill at the same time that you're making this trade. Because if you trade for Bryce Young first, or you have to have an agreement principle. If you trade for Bryce Young first, your value for Ryan Tannehill is obviously going to hit a lower threshold than what it is right now.
And remind everybody about the June 1st thing.
You save more money after June 1st if you trade him. But, I mean, at that point, you're not going to be able to wait to trade Ryan Tannehill in June. So it's going to have – then you're talking about like a draft pick that doesn't fucking matter at all. Yeah. I mean, you got to remember what they traded away for Carson Wentz. So Ryan Tannehill's a million times better than Carson Wentz. It's not even freaking close. So there's going to be suitors out there. His contract's manageable to kick it down the road and all that stuff. I say all this to say is that there's still free agency. And amidst all of this, there is still free agency. And that's where you're going to be able to do some interior line, no matter what it is, damage. So the guard class specifically in free agency and in the draft is about the deepest you could ever be. So that's probably why they're kind of looking at everything. They're like, I know we're not getting into it real quick, but Nate Davis is probably gone because it is such a deep class. And let's be honest, if they do switch to a more Kansas City style run team, you might as well just blow up as much as you can at once.
And it's not like the offensive line
was that great.
Right. It already needed to be blown up anyway.
Yeah, it's getting blown up regardless.
Yeah. Except for right tackle, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. But in the end of the day, can you take the 2 or 3 draft picks that you get back for Ryan Tannehill in this year's draft, pair that up with not giving up a 2nd and a 3rd because you gave up 3 firsts? That's a lot of draft picks that you can either maneuver around to maybe trade for future draft picks. Because, I mean, you can always maybe trade of some currently in this one for ones next year.
Yep.
You're also talking about the cap going up to probably $250-something million, and you're already going to have $90 million to play with in 2024. So now you're going to be going up more. It's just, to me, right now is this is the perfect time if the team decides, hey, I love Bryce Young. I love CJ Stroud. And we're going to go up and get him at number 1 because we know that the next few years, that if we don't, the Texans may, the Colts may, and then now we're having to go up against a really young core group of quarterbacks, and we're kind of still up shit's creek without a paddle because we're not rebuilding, we're retooling.
I do think the more you study, and I don't know what the exact we're sort of hypothetically throwing out costs here, right? For both Ryan Tannehill and for the number 1 pick. hypothetically. But I think 3 firsts is a pretty big offer, like in general. I think that's a pretty big offer. So,
and I think that's what's going to have to take.
Yeah, because other teams are going to want it.
Right. You got to remember, the Texans have 2 firsts this year, 2 firsts next year, but they're at number 2. Do they really need to trade up?
Well, ideally, they trade up to 1, take their guy. Your guy is still there at 2. You trade with the Texans or
you trade with the Bears.
The Bears, and you pay a little bit less. I think here's why I've come around on this as a strategy. Ryan Tannehill is a diminishing asset, so you're never going to get more for him than you can right now.
Right.
You're probably not going to be much closer than 11 to the top pick.
They're going to be in the 20s from here on out.
Let's say they even finish just 8 and 9 or 7 and 10 again. They're going to be right in the same 11, 12, 13. Like, I don't see this team being bad enough to ever be like 4th. Right. So you could argue they're closer to the number 1 slot than they've ever been or will be. They've got a depreciating asset in Tannehill who's worth as much as he's ever going to be worth right now today than he ever will be at any point in the future.
Yeah, because no Tom Brady is off the market.
Yep. You're reinventing the offense with a brand new coordinator, and you're tying it in with a potential generational talent at quarterback that you think is the guy. Like, to me, when you put all of the strategies together, and you've got a deep offensive line group of players that you can draft in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds this year, in free agency this year, when you put that whole thing together, it's a pretty good case for going up and getting the guy that you want. I wonder what you think Twitter would do if they see 3 first-round draft picks and they take an Ohio State quarterback.
Oh, well, that's going to be a hard pill to swallow. But, I got to have faith in Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel that they know what they're doing, because that is the other rumor that came out was Justin Cohen of the Sacramento Globe, which I definitely take this one with the most grain of salt. You might as well give me a 5-pound bag of salt. But he tweets out that C.J. Stroud is the quarterback that they're in love with, essentially, is what he said. And this is Justin Cohen from the Sacramento Globe, who supposedly writes for the AP, though when I Google Justin Cohen's Associated Press, not one of his fucking articles shows up.
He's saying what? Who is the
C.J. Stroud?
Who's in love with the Titans? Oh, God.
So if that is the case, then that's kind of a – but
we all know where Mike Vrabel went to college.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's the easy connection. I do think, though, that as long – I'm willing to give it a shot. I think the internet – I think for the most part, I think he'd be surprised from what I gauge on Titans Twitter. They're already decided that Bryce Young is going to be the size that he is. He'll never be bigger. He won't be good. He'll be injured in the first week. This fan base is, I think, largely behind C.J. Stroud.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, I would take either of them.
Yeah.
If I was
if they're trading up for someone, they've done their due diligence. Right. They love this guy. They're not trading up for a guy and say, well, we just have to have a quarterback just to have a young quarterback.
No, if they go up to get like Anthony Richardson is clearly a development pick that may be available at 11. And Will Levis, I know how much you think of him. I think he's better than what Tennessee, not Titans fans, but like Tennessee football fans, Vols think. But I don't think he's better than Stroud or Young. And I think he's a far bigger risk than Stroud or Young. So, again, all of this is dependent on a bunch of things, right?
Yeah.
Do you believe that one of these two guys is your guy? They may not. And if they don't make the trade. Can you come to an agreement with the Chicago Bears? You may not be able to. Somebody else may outbid you. You may not be able to get Ryan Tannehill off the books in the right timely manner. So, all these things could work out. It makes it the right strategy to like explore, I think, if you're Rand Carthon. And I think that is the key is do your diligence. Make sure you cross every T, dot every I, cliche. Collaborate with everybody you need to collaborate with. And if you can execute it, I see the strategy behind it. And I like it. To me, if it's Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, and I look at it this way. A lot of people are talking about the future picks and the value of a first-round pick. And at the end of the day, I feel like I'm looking at the data and I'm looking at the cycle that is the NFL, the cyclical nature of the sport itself, the cyclical nature of the NFL draft. I don't think these first-round picks, because of projecting out the quality of the player that's going to be there in the 20s compared to the quality of player that you're getting in Bryce Young, I don't think those matter in value for a team like the Tennessee Titans as much as it would for the Bears, who are obviously in a rebuilding phase.
Just a much worse overall roster.
Yeah, the Titans are not in a rebuilding phase. And I look at it this way, if you have done your due diligence and you believe that much in Bryce Young,
That's
you
all that
don't know what's going to be.
That's all that matters to me.
You don't know who's going to get injured next year.
Yeah.
You don't know who is going to be up at the top of the draft. You cannot project. You have to take what you have in front of you. It's like the could be the mystery box, where you can take the boat or you can take the mystery box. Well, the mystery box could be a boat, but it also could not be a boat.
A good question here from Sean in a second. I think all of this ties into if you one, like, you have to be certain that this is your guy, and if he is, then I think all of this makes sense.
And I will say this: if Bryce Young shows up at the combine, because I don't think a deal gets done until after the combine, okay? And no matter what's going on, if Bryce Young comes in at like 205 to 210, people are going to be falling over themselves to get up there because he's wanting to be 215.
I've been this close to him before for more than 10 minutes, and he is at least 30 pounds lighter than me. That's a bad sign for me. He is not a large person. He's just thin. He's not bulky. Like Jalen Hurts, for example.
But that's why he's hiring a nutritionist to get up there. And I mean, obviously this nutritionist has said, okay, here's our range that we can get you to.
Like, does he need to squat 600 pounds like Jalen Hurts? Probably not. That's not what he needs to do. But there's also guys that just aren't bulky, that aren't big. And he's not a thick dude the way Jalen Hurts was thick, like as a freshman at Alabama. So I don't think that's going to always be a problem for him, is playing weight. Now, I
think once he gets there, he'll be there.
The bigger issue is this right here. He is shorter than me. I am 6'1", but like really I'm like 6 foot and like
the biggest
5'8".
issue is his frame. That's the biggest issue.
You're saying
not his height.
The general size.
Yeah, I mean, like it's his frame. It's the weight, because
he's a small guy too.
If you're talking about being injured, then it's going to comes down to the weight. The height has nothing to do with your injuries.
I disagree with that. I think it has everything to do with. I think injuries are more about like the way your body is actually constructed. Like each human being is different. Like one person may have better knees than another person. I think we know very little about the human body in that sense, which is why I think blaming a strength and conditioning coach for injuries in football is odd to me, because I think the human body is very, very unique for everybody.
Well,
but avoiding the hit,
they go to school to learn about stuff that we do not know about.
True, but we still know very little. My issue is how to. I learned this from a coach a long time ago. Certain guys know how to fall, and certain guys. Robert Griffin does not know how to fall,
but Bryce Young does.
And so it's not about like 215 or 205. I'm not even sure it's about 6 foot versus 5'10" and a half. It's more about, do you know how to protect yourself? Do you know how to fall? And like we've seen Mahomes do this, where he avoids it, and then when he needs to do something, he has to do something crazy, and he takes the big hit, and he saves it for the right time to take the big hit. If that makes sense. Emmitt Smith knew how to fall. Like, there's certain guys that just don't, and they just can't get out of the way. Cam Newton, no idea how to fall.
But I think in general, what I'm saying is that his height is not an issue when it comes to injuries. I think his weight is the bigger issue when it comes to injuries. Now, you say that height's an issue, is one of those biggest issues. Why is that?
Well, I think, first of all, short quarterbacks are just rarely successful. So just statistically, you have to be special to be that good at that size. Which he is.
Obviously.
I agree with that. So that's where all I can say to Titans fans and to anybody watching is like, here's what Bryce Young was standing next to me.
Yeah.
Do with that information what you will. He's on the short side. He's on the thin side. So that means I think it's not just one or the other. It's the whole thing. This is his size. And the only ones who have been good at that size, and Russell Wilson is thicker than Bryce Young. Drew Brees was thicker than Bryce Young. So it's all about just,
that's why I'm saying he's got to get thicker.
Are you comfortable with being a couple inches shorter than your average starting quarterback? That's almost all of them are 6'2" or higher. Even Rodgers and these guys 6'2" or higher. And also being a little thin. Like, are you okay with that? And if they're okay with that, you go get him. Because I think he's elite.
That's why I prefaced it with, if he gets to 205 by the combine and shows that he can add weight, and he says the plan is I'm still going to add 10 more pounds by the time summer rolls around. And if that's the case, you're going to have teams falling all over themselves for this guy.
That's probably. I mean, I think they're going to fall over him no matter what, because I think he's that good.
I think, but I mean, you know how this team, the NFL is about traits.
Yeah.
So
hand size and all that garbage. Sean says, by the way, here at Pharmacy, wonderful, beautiful, awesome February Monday. So come out here and get yourself a Hopbrauer, and we've got the Porcupine Brat Patty Burger with country ham, grilled pineapple, Swiss arugula, onion, maple mustard. The Porcupine Burger, that's a brat patty with with country ham. So come on out to the pharmacy, of course, in East Nashville. They also have a location downtown as well. But you're never going to find a place where you're going to get locally sourced beers you can't get anywhere else from all over the state. You're going to get this one's from Europe that you can't get anywhere else in the city of Nashville. So come on out, and where are you going to get a garden like this on a weekday, on a gorgeous day when all of a sudden the sun pops out and it's not 14 fucking degrees? Come out here come out here and have a beautiful day and a beautiful meal. Also, the Kingston Group, of course, buildkg.com is the website. Make sure you check them out anytime you make any decisions about your house. Just remember the name. We're not asking you to call them right this second. Just look at their
I'll ask you.
Just look
Go
at
ahead and call them right now.
I think the most important, remember the name, the Kingston Group. That's all you need to do. Remember the name, the Kingston Group. Sean says, what if Arizona trades the third overall pick before Chicago? Does that make a trade with Chicago more difficult? I guess the question there is if they're moving up for a quarterback.
No, I think what he's saying is that if Arizona trades back before anybody trades up with Chicago, then yes, whatever, that is the baseline for what Chicago is asking for, right? Like whatever Arizona gets in a trade back scenario where they trade away their third round pick to move back, at like 10% to that is like that's what that probably Chicago's would be asking.
So you're talking about just the cost of the pick.
Yeah.
I'm saying if that team is moving up to clearly draft a quarterback, that may then drive up the cost.
Well, yeah, I mean that too, but I mean both things are going to drive up the cost.
Exactly. So
I mean that both those things are going to drive up the cost because now the Chicago's like, okay, well the third round pick or the third overall pick went for this. I need this.
That makes sense. Also, D Good says, I want the Colts to take Levis so badly. I think you and every single Titans fan I have ever met in the history of my life would.
I would rather them take him in the second round just because I want to be right about Levis not going in the first round from what I've heard from NFL execs. I just want to be right. I want to be right in both scenarios.
Freaking Mel Kiper's Mel Kiper's either gonna be a genius or he's gonna look like the biggest idiot. Love you, Mel. Okay, so what coming out of this is all kind of tied together, right? The Titans draft strategy.
Are we going to the O-line guys?
And then Nate. So it all kind of
the
whole puzzle fits together in some random way on any given conversation. But Nate Davis, Jim Wyatt, just like a little one line in the bottom of an answer to in a mailbag, basically says, "I don't expect Nate Davis to come back,"
which is pretty big for those that read Jim Wyatt's mailbag. That's a pretty definitive statement.
He's not really allowed, and I've talked to him about. He's not really allowed. He knows where the line is.
Yeah.
And he knows what lines he can and can't cross. And for him to say that, to your point, I think means
that's as definitive a statement for Jim Wyatt as it gets.
Exactly. And with Ben Jones basically kind of out there talking about how much he still wants to play the game.
Yeah.
I'm going to rest. I'm going to relax. I'm going to recuperate. I'm going to spend time with my family. And then I'm ready to come. I'm still mentally ready to play. I think one more year, right, on the contract.
Yeah.
So he's still technically a
and you don't really gain much if he retires either way in draft.
What is it, $3.5 million?
I think it's $4 million, and then you split up his dead cap over 2 years if he retired post June 1st. To me, this is great news that Ben Jones coming back because I think he's by far still the best offensive lineman that the Titans have had in a long time and have currently under contract right now.
When you package it with Nate Davis not coming back, let's assume that
I'd rather have Ben Jones back than Nate Davis.
Well, and what it means is if Ben Jones is back, you have at least 2 of your 5 situations settled, and Nicholas Petit-Frere at right tackle, Jones at center. You don't have to fill 4 slots on your offensive line instead of just the 2. Now, package this with, I think, what is the biggest story coming out of Mobile last week, which is that the depth of I don't know if you agree or disagree with this, the depth along the offensive line at the Senior Bowl, which is not every player, obviously, but at the Senior Bowl, means that you can acquire some really talented pieces that could be starter quality interior offensive linemen. That looked like the best group on paper, looked like the best group at practice, looked like the best group when I was reading Substacks by Zach and listening to podcasts by you and Stoney. The offensive line feels like it was the biggest winner, but none of those guys are top 15 picks in the draft. They're all middle round guys. So what's the strategy here for the offensive line?
Well, I think that if Ben Jones comes back, that's a big boon for the Tennessee Titans. I think that's fantastic. Like that is to me is best case scenario, has me dancing in the street because then what if you do reach a deal with Nate Davis? And now you've only got 2 offensive line spots.
Yeah.
So, what if
you're saying Jim Wyatt is just
I'm just saying what if
Nate Davis?
What if? That is always a distinct possibility that he goes the route of Jayon Brown and he's like, oh, my market's not as good for a guy who can't stay healthy. That may have
that
behind the scene
body didn't work all that well,
behind the scene maybe issues with putting in the work. Those 8-4 guys.
Man.
Stuff like that.
Zach literally never forgets a single thing you've ever said, Mike Vrabel. Ever.
Nope. And
Never
so
said
I tie all this in together to say that it's the perfect opportunity right now this year. It's kind of funny. So, like, at the beginning of the offseason, or when we're approaching closer to the offseason, this wide receiver group is not going to be any good. Oh man, they're not going to be able to find an offensive tackle. Oh, it's a rebuild. Oh. And I tried telling everybody, I don't think it's a rebuild. I think that it's going to be an opportunity to be a little bit better. And here we are, and I'm getting proven right.
Well, look at
because I'm always right.
I don't think there is such a thing maybe as a rebuild of the NFL. Seattle just traded their Hall of Fame quarterback and was better.
Yeah, well, they hit on the draft class.
They hit on the draft class, and they got a bunch. Anyway,
yeah,
I think you're right that this team is closer to winning the division than it is to being in a total.
Well, and
rebuild.
It's because this draft class is starting to look like it lines up with what they need.
Yeah.
Even if they don't trade up for a quarterback, and you're still stuck with Ryan Tannehill, Paris Johnson at 11, Broderick Jones at 11. You take one of those two guys. If they're not there, you take the best wide receiver, and then you go down. And
let me ask you this real fast, because you saw a bunch of linemen there, and none of them were 11 good. Pick 11 good. They're all kind of maybe Osiris Torrance is a first-round pick, but basically this was a lot of great second, third, fourth round interior offensive linemen. A couple of right tackles. Darnell Wright was very good, but nobody that's like the left tackle that you saw down there. And I'm curious. I think the only way the Titans fix the left tackle position permanently is by drafting one at 11 or thereabouts if they were to trade up or back a couple spots. Can they fix that problem permanently in free agency?
Probably not unless Andre Dillard pans out. Like if you sign Andre Dillard, he's really the only left tackle, but I don't think that has to be solved in the first round.
I'm just saying if you're trying to fix that problem long term, like Bryce Young would be at quarterback.
Yeah.
The only play I think there is the 11th pick. Like you've got 2 or 3 guys that are maybe franchise left tackles.
No, I think you can find others in the draft. I mean, like Tyler Steen is a guy that really showed up and popped up. But I mean, you don't have to draft him, in the first round.
He's a franchise left tackle.
I don't see why he couldn't be.
Okay.
I mean, Jalen Duncan is another one. Blake Freeland is one that I would say no to.
Yeah.
That had potential to be that guy. Now, listen, if you get a good O-line coach that can fix his issues, then yes, he could be.
True.
But I mean, it's really up there. My point is that I think that the offensive line class in particular is a lot deeper than what people give it credit for. And I think the sweet spot for a wide receiver is going to be your 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks.
I agree with that too.
I don't think, unless you're getting one of the top guys like Quentin Johnston, Jackson Smith.
There's 3 in my opinion.
I would say maybe Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers. I kind of go back and forth with those two as the 3rd wide receiver. But if you get one of those guys or don't get one of those guys, 2nd round is not the sweet spot for a wide receiver, in my opinion. I think your 2nd round pick is your offensive lineman if you were to miss out. Like if I had to choose between, and I love Paris Johnson, but you could also go Cody Mock in the 2nd round and get a guy that is a left guard. He is a left guard. And
plug and play type of guy.
He could be your center of the future after Ben Jones retires too, because he looked really good at center at the Senior Bowl.
I think the Titans could get almost a guaranteed starter at any of the 3 interior line positions, and maybe the best off the board in the entire draft at 41, which is where their 2nd pick is right now. Again, whether that's Avila out of TCU, you got Torrance out of Florida, you got the Schmidt kid, the center out of Minnesota, could be the top center in the entire class. Again, you may not need a center.
Yeah, and that's the issue. The one thing I hate about this Ben Jones thing is that I love JMS, John Michael Schmidt, so much.
He had a good week.
He's so good, and he's so good on tape. The tape matches the Senior Bowl, matches the practices. He's a leader. He's a natural-born leader. He's the natural succession plan for
could he play left guard for 1 year and then
that's just kind of a projection. I mean, could you maybe start Ben Jones at left guard?
Okay.
Or could you start Ben Jones at right guard and then put JMS? I mean, that's kind of a projection. Could JMS push him to retire and he say, man, you guys are in good hands, maybe I just need to retire after June 1st?
How about this is one of the things that, and again, now we're into strategy and we're we gotta wait to do strategy, but it's just so much fun to discuss, in my opinion. What if you go Paris Johnson at 11 and an interior lineman at 41, and all of a sudden you have 4 or 5 positions already settled.
You
on the
absolutely
offensive
should
line.
do that.
I
If
think
you
it's-
do not get Bryce Young, you should absolutely go back-to-back offensive line picks in this particular draft, because if you were to tell me, hey, we got Paris Johnson in the first round, Broderick Jones in the first round, I'd be okay with both of those. If we got those guys, and then, hey, we got Cody Mock in the second round, oh, baby, we're cooking with gas.
I think it's great.
And you know what? You shouldn't be dumb, because you should go ahead and draft your right guard.
Well, and maybe in the third round at 72, that's where you get your receiver. Obviously, that's a possibility there. Stoney, of course, was down there with you. Check out all the great coverage from the Sobros Network and from Stoney and you. JMS, who is John Michael Schmidt from the center from Minnesota, of course, did some great work at left guard. And surprise, he looked decent in the drills. He also is very positive about Steve Avila, who's a guard from TCU. As well.
And Olusegun Oluwatimi or Oluwatimi.
Do that again.
Olusegun Oluwatimi.
Nice.
He is a really good center that you could probably get in the 4th or 5th round.
Joe Tipperman out of Wisconsin could be the best center, but
I think JMS is the best center.
I agree with you. Those guys could all be point. Here's the key with this: is that the Titans could get the best center in the draft and maybe the best guard in the draft at 41 if they want.
Yeah,
they could get the first or second best tackle in the draft at 11. And you could still come back in the 3rd round and get a really good receiver, because I think there's unlike last year, there are 3 guys in my opinion that are guaranteed 1st round picks with Addison, Jackson.
This
Smith,
is so much like the 2017 draft for wide receiver for me, where you're talking about Mike Williams, Corey Davis, and John Ross as your top 3 guys.
That's right.
And then everybody else that was drafted after those guys are better.
Now, I will say, if you look at a lot of the guys that just got paid hundreds of millions of dollars, they were all involved in the offseason last year. Not one of them was a 1st round pick.
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. Not Tyreek Hill because he's an asshole. But the other guys, all the highest paid receivers in the world, not one of them was a 1st round draft pick.
And obviously Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase are going to change that. But the point is, there is no Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase in this draft, in my opinion. Jackson Smith is probably JSN is probably the closest.
He's the best receiver.
He's the best receiver. Now, maybe we'll save this for later.
But he's injured.
No, but I want to save this for later. But we did talk about, because Max Dugan was so terrible this weekend. How much better would Quentin Johnston have been if he didn't have Max Dugan?
That's probably fair.
Yeah.
Johnston also kind of came out of he's a late bloomer.
Right.
But
all this to say is that it's very much like Quentin Johnston is Mike Williams. John Ross is Jordan Addison. JSN is probably closer to Corey Davis than the rest of them. You think about this, and then you think about, hey, that was the draft Cooper Kupp was drafted. Oh, Juju Smith-Schuster was a lot better.
One, 3rd round receiver.
I am telling you, this is not the draft to want to draft a guy at 11. I think we'll look back and say,
I agree with
a lot like Corey Davis at number 5.
No, I will. The only person I disagree with that on is Jackson Smith and
and I'd probably agree with that.
If he was fully healthy the entire year, he's like the number 4 pick.
I think Corey Davis was hurt as well.
Yeah, that's also true.
Oh my gosh.
Now
I really nailed it with this 2017 comparison. Off the fly, by the way.
You did. It was very good. I will say that I think Smith and Jigba did not play for this very reason. I don't think it's because he was like.
Yeah, I think he just purposely.
I think he was like, look, I'm going to make a lot of money, so I'm going to take it easy, which his teammates don't really care about. So that's fine. All right. Some other quick news and notes here around the Titans and the NFL. Obviously, special thanks to the Pharmacy and to Kingston Group for supporting us. Make sure you check out the inbox as well. stackingtheinbox.substack.com. You can get all of Zach's content there. Pharmacy course here in East Nashville on a gorgeous day like this.
Just by the way, if you've paid for Stacking the Inbox, 17 paid articles are out. Okay, so 17 high quality. Pretty much, I think every one of them. I only had one that was under 2,000 words. Okay,
your yards per play is off the charts.
So 17. Right now, it would cost you, if you had signed up at the beginning of the month, and my 1 month anniversary is next Monday. If you signed up, it would have cost you only 24 cents an article right now. 24 cents.
Get it down to the words for me.
I don't know about the words. That's like a.
I as a subscriber, that's the best quarter I've ever spent every day.
Yeah, I mean it's easy. I mean it's an easy subscription to do when you really think about it, and the fact that some of you guys have not. What are you waiting for? It's literally $4 a month. And you can pay monthly. You don't have to pay in one lump sum, and I prefer that.
Great one about how the Titans can save a bunch of cap space. You had one recently about the do's and don'ts of mock drafts, so all kinds of great stuff in there, so make sure you check that out.
Oh, I got some good ones coming this week.
So just quickly here, I guess, so Lo Locust was hired, first female assistant coach for the Tennessee Titans.
First position coach ever in the NFL back in 2019. Also an MVP for the Virginia Vipers.
I think I guess the only thing I have to say about this, and we'll have a longer conversation in the offseason about sort of the entire organization being revamped in Amy Adams-Strunk image and what she wants this franchise to be and the relationship with the city and the community. We'll have a lot longer
and not to
conversation
mention,
with that.
The person that had the most exposure to Low Locust is going to be Mike Vrabel, who's but essentially practiced against him for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's true. To anyone who says that this is about any other reason but doing what's best for the Tennessee Titans, do you really think that Mike Vrabel would do any of that shit?
Oh, no. This is someone that can come in and coach.
Spare me the garbage.
And she's working with the outside linebackers, right? With Ryan Crow.
Yes, go spew it somewhere else. Go talk to somebody else. Go drag your knuckles and mouth breathe somewhere else.
Hey, let me say this. She's played more football than you have.
Like, Mike Vrabel is not going to do something that is...
How many MVP trophies you got for playing football?
He doesn't do, what's the word I'm looking for? Celebratory, or what's the word? Ceremonial. He doesn't do, ceremonial.
He doesn't give a fuck about what any of you guys think.
Everything he does is to make his team better. That's
Yes.
it. Full stop. So that's it. So congratulations to Low Locust and welcome to Nashville. D'Amico Ryans, I think, is a great hire by the Houston Texans. Like, one of the first really good things they've done in a while.
Great hire on paper. I mean, we got to see it go out because
true.
How many times have we seen a coordinator? And listen, I'm not betting against D'Amico Ryans by any means, but we do have to throw a little bit of caution out there that how many defensive coordinators or coordinators in general have gotten all this hullabaloo and come in and been saddled with a shitty general manager and have come in and not been able to live up to their hype, and they've set the franchise back 2 or 3 seasons in a progress and on timeline because – okay, maybe they keep D'Amico Ryans next go around, but then they have to find another GM. So now you're almost starting to ride back over.
Sean Payton, of course, at a really high dollar premium, which I think Sean Payton going to Denver to me is like a lesson in that you just don't know what makes people what's important to people.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to a quarterback deciding where he wants to go, or a coach or a GM or what, you just never know. Cause I think everybody would rip on Russell Wilson for being off, falling off. They've traded all their picks. But ownership is what was important to Sean Payton more than anything else. And we debated that. I mean, for months, what was important to him? Is it the roster? Is it the quarterback? Is it location? And it turns out ownership is the most important thing. And he likes that ownership group, and he's ready to try to fix Russell Wilson, I guess. So I think it makes it makes the AFC a little bit more difficult because I think he's a good coach.
Yeah. I think both those hirings of Sean Payton and D'Amico Ryans, it's almost the AFC is going to be really good in 2 or 3 years. But then again, you're going to have 2 or 3 teams that they're technically replacing the hierarchy that have fallen off at that point.
It's
so it's almost like it's going to be the same. Everybody always says, "Oh, remember last year?" And we fell into this trap, or at least I did. Oh, the AFC West is going to be loaded. I wouldn't be surprised if they had 3 or 4 teams. You know what I'm saying in the playoffs and blah blah blah. And it turns out they all pretty much were, besides Kansas City Chiefs, were lukewarm.
2 of them made the playoffs. The other 2 were giant dumpster fires.
Yeah.
And they're both.
And the Chargers really lucked in making it in the playoffs.
But to your point, in 3 years, are the Ravens terrible because they move on from Lamar Jackson and they don't they have to turn over the roster. There's
only going to be so many good teams in one conference, and if 2 people move up, 2 people got to move down.
Here's what I do know: Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen aren't going anywhere.
Yeah,
that's what we do know. Okay, so anything else? That's just kind of some news around the league that I think just some stuff we wanted to observe. Is there anything else from your week in the Senior Bowl that ties into the Titans' giant puzzle that they're trying to put together this offseason? Anything else that people need to know?
Well, I think one thing I know we made fun of the John Robinson. Oh, if they're at the Senior Bowl and they're injured, or if they're, if these prospects are that, they're going to be a Tennessee Titan. Well, there were 12 teams that drafted 4 or more players in the Senior Bowl last year, in last year's draft, that were at last year's Senior Bowl. Tennessee Titans were not in that top 12. The San Francisco 49ers were. And if you subscribe to stackingtheinbox.substack.com, guess what I'm going to be diving into this week? What do these picks from the San Francisco 49ers in the rounds that day 3 that Rand Carthon supposedly has a heavy-handed in, what do they look like? What are they there for? So what kind of prospects would fit those down here that were down here? Because let me say
Where else can you get that kind of content?
Nowhere. So there are 4 draft picks last year. And one of them was a starter in Spencer Buford, an offensive lineman. One of them was a starter. Tariq Castro Fields was a pretty good player. They found a couple good players. Danny Gray, I think, had some injury problems, but he's a really good speed option. But the point is, just because John Robinson is gone does not mean that they do not value the Senior Bowl any less. And specifically, a head coach and general manager who are still in that dating phase, the courtship phase. This was a good opportunity for them to kind of like mind meld and get on the same page and look at the same players, because 40% for the last 2 drafts, 40% of the drafted players came from the Senior Bowl. That's a large basically connect. What
are you looking for?
Pipeline is a large pipeline.
He's looking for pipe.
Yeah. A large pipeline to the NFL goes through the Senior Bowl, and that's why the draft starts in Mobile.
It does. And so comparing it to sort of like the recruiting rankings and the recruiting process where like they get these All-American games together. And what happens is you have these 5 stars that play against like nobodies in high school, and then they get them onto a practice field for a week against like competition. And it's the first time they've ever sort of had somebody of equivalent talent to go against. And so what happens is you spend 11 months evaluating these guys, and then you've got your list, and then you use the practice to tweak it some. You're not taking a guy that's 2000th in the recruiting rankings and making him a 5-star. But what you're doing is you're saying, all right, John Michael Schwartz looked like he was this good, and okay, he was really good against really high level competition this week. So we're going to just kind of go right here, and he's going to go from a mid-third, early 4th to like a mid-second.
You're more likely to fall further than you are to rise higher.
Yes, exactly.
Because like Andre Yoshevich this week came in with a lot of hype. 6'2", going to run a 4.2, looked like crap all week, and he's going to go down. I think Luke Musgrave is a guy that everybody's really hyped up on because they have this pre-draft, conceived notion about him off 2 games in 2022 and totally ignoring his 2021 season and his stats. And
your Luke Musgrave hate is misplaced.
It is not misplaced because he was not good.
Because he's not fully healthy yet.
Well, guess what? He was not good this week. He looked at like the 3rd best tight end, and I think that's going to show up. I think he will get drafted in the top 50, but I think that's going to be a mistake for whatever team drafts him.
Michael Mayer's the best tight end in the class out of Notre Dame. That's not even close. I think he probably is the 3rd best tight end in the draft class.
Well, no, he was the 3rd best tight end in the Senior Bowl. He is probably the 5th or 6th best in the tight end class.
I also don't understand why the Titans would target a tight end with the 41st pick unless it is a bona fide star that's going to start.
I think there's only 3 that really deserve it, but I think what you're going to find is Luke Musgrave is going to go higher, and then he's going to be the least talked about out of the class.
I agree with that. I will say this: if you're looking for a good quality complementary tight end with Chigakonku, I think this is a good class to do that. Rounds 3, 4, 5, 6. I think there's some really good tight ends in this class. All right, so. Good. Yeah, Purdue kid was very, very good this week in practice. So
and at the game.
Again, this is just like the beginning of our coverage of the draft. We still have the combine. We still have free agency. We have so much to do. But make sure you check out the Substack, of course, as well as all the great work.
Stackintheinbox.substack.com.
Stoney, thank you so much, man, for hanging out and doing what you did last week.
SoBrosNetwork.com.
SoBros Network, and as well as the F Words Pod as well. You guys did a great job last week. So it leads us right into the one minor complaint here on the show about what happens at the Senior Bowl. Like Hendon Hooker was again, great player for Tennessee. Fans should love him because he's a great kid, and he's
gonna kill every interview that you ever see him do.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, you were down there, you pay attention closer to how the Twitter sphere local media ecosystem heartbeat is. Why are people misguided on the Hendon Hooker Tennessee Titans conversation?
Well, it's because there's an orange. He has a helmet that has an orange T on it. It's much like why people are drafting Darnell Wright at number 11 when we already have a right tackle that in two-tone blue.
Unbelievable.
And you know what the Steelers have already done? They've already begun their smoke screen again. Remember how they smoke screened everybody after the Senior Bowl about Malik Willis?
Yeah.
They're doing it with Darnell Wright, saying, I think we may switch him over to left tackle. Okay, so that's the new smoke screen this season from the Steelers. But I think Darnell Wright's a great player. The Tennessee Titans don't need him. And you know what the local media did? Because listen, I'm not an idiot. The UT fans make up their fan base.
And it drives ratings.
So all they care about is talking about UT players and painting UT players in a good light, like Byron Young, even with clips that show him getting stonewalled on his ass by Cameron Latu.
All right, okay. Roll Tide.
Here's the thing. It just wasn't even Roll Tide. I know. He's just getting stonewalled. I don't care about the helmets.
I think Latu's a good player.
Yeah. He showed up really well. And I will say this, in the end, Hendon Hooker saying that the first team I talked to was Tennessee Titans.
It's huge. That's huge.
It's nothing.
It's huge.
You know why?
He's going to be the starter next year, Zach.
Well, if he is, they need to go ahead and cut Malik Willis. Listen, you know why? Because he talked to every team down there. Every team talks to every player. Is literally a speed dating style setup. They sit one player at a table and they just go around the room and they just keep on going. They interview and talk to everybody for like 2 or 3 minutes. It's a whirlwind. Every player talks to everyone. It does not matter. It does not matter that Hendon Hooker's first time that he sat down was with the Tennessee Titans.
Can you imagine the wet dreams if it's Josh Dobbs and Hendon Hooker going into camp next year?
Oh my God! I don't think the UT fan would be able to. Their head would explode because who do they root for?
They would have no pants that fit anymore. They wouldn't be able to leave the house.
It doesn't matter. Listen. Quit mocking these UT players. I think the only UT player you should be mocking to the Tennessee Titans is Jalen Hyatt or Cedric Tillman. I think the rest of them are just not going to be on this team. And look, if I'm wrong and Hendon Hooker's drafted in the 5th round by the Tennessee Titans because they don't have a 4th round pick, if he's drafted in the 5th round, you're going to see your boy Malik Willis on the trading block and probably getting traded for a 7th round pick.
I personally love Hendon Hooker as a human being and as a quarterback and as an alumni. But as a 5th round pick, I'm not sure what value he provides over Josh Dobbs or Malik Willis when that 5th round pick could be a starting guard or backup nickel corner or receiver.
None of the quarterbacks
in the 5th round don't work.
None of the quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl outside of Hendon Hooker, who did not play, all of the quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl that played, they all stink. And I would rather take year 2 Malik Willis than year 1 any of those guys. Now,
don't hate on Jake Haener.
I would rather take Hendon Hooker over Malik Willis because I think Hendon Hooker has those intangibles, the love of football. I mean, obviously going down here, the way he's shown up for his team is a totally different leader and character than Malik Willis is. And I think that that's at least workable. More so than what any of these other guys are. And Jake Haener should not have gotten MVP. That's a farce. It should have been Michael Wilson.
That's not bad. Also, this is another quick note, a really good running back class for a backup in like the 4th or 5th round as well. Lots of
Evan Hull. I really like Evan Hull.
Really good running backs that are going to fall down the board because there's going
to be a lot in undrafted free agency too.
No question. And we didn't get to this because we've got weeks to decide it until the draft happens. But if they do want a defensive end to replace Bud Dupree or an edge rusher,
another good class to do it
in the 2nd round with that 41st pick, you're going to get a 1st round value because this is one of the best edge classes of all time, and it's probably the strongest position of the entire draft. So these are the kind of things you're going to get.
Cornerbacks are really great. I mean, there's all kinds of players that are Tennessee Titans that are down here. I think even Stoney said that he was going to write an article saying that it's like top 12 Titans fits or something.
Byron Young at number 11.
No.
To the Titans. All right, so here's the deal. We had a quarterback conversation we were going to have today on the show. I want to save it because coming up on Thursday, we're obviously going to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. But we're going to get into SEC quarterback play because there's a bunch of huge question marks because all the names we've talked about today on the show, Hendon Hooker, although we didn't talk about Stetson Bennett, but
there's no need to talk about Stetson.
3 potential 1st-round picks out of the SEC, the 2-time defending national champion quarterback out of the SEC, and Hendon Hooker, who's the most efficient quarterback in Tennessee history, not named Peyton. Those 5 guys are all gone out of the conference. And so the SEC is in a very different position today at this time of the year than it was this time last year. So we're going to have a conversation about quarterbacks in the SEC and the Super Bowl and a whole lot more stuff from the inbox coming up on a football show on Thursday. So make sure you check out the pharmacy this week. The weather's supposed to be great until like Friday or Saturday. So make sure you come by the pharmacy while the weather's nice. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. So check out the pharmacy. You got the porcupine, the brat patty, country ham, grilled pineapple, Swiss, arugula, onion, and maple mustard. They got locally sourced beers. Kingston Group, great place to get your house fixed. So make sure you check them out. BuildKG.com. Anything else, Zach? You get football show?
We got it. Football and other efforts this week. I think Mike's back from Miami. He went to Miami last week where we were down in Mobile.
What's he doing in Miami?
Partying. Having a good old time without his kid.
Guy's such a party animal. I had no idea about that guy. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out. Rate, review, subscribe, share the show. Tell everybody about it. We do appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the Stacking the Inbox as well. And support local business, guys. The pharmacy and the Kingston Group. For Zach, I'm Braden. This has been a football show.